On a distant planet at the edge of the galaxy, the Unity Core Academy stood tall, a shining symbol of peace among the stars. Built by the Confederation of Allied Species, the Academy welcomed recruits from all over the galaxy to train together as one united force. Some arrived proud and confident from strong warrior races. Others came in silence, with no one to support them. Among the newest recruits were two alien sisters from a distant, forest-covered planet called Luria, Kaila, and Viri. Their people, known as Lurians, were rare and misunderstood. Kayla was wild like a storm. She never followed orders exactly, always moving fast, always leaping into danger without waiting. Viri was her opposite, quiet, soft-spoken, and thoughtful, often staying in the shadows. They wore soft, leaf-like armor, and their glowing green eyes made others uneasy. To the other recruits, they were too different, too strange. Too wild, some whispered about Kayla. Too gentle, others said about Viri. Squad leaders didn't want them. Trainers gave them the simplest tasks. When teams were formed, Kayla and Viri were left alone. No one wanted to work with them. They trained in silence, far from the others. While the squads marched together, they sparred with each other. While others practiced blaster drills, they trained with their long crystal staffs, weapons from their home world. But while the Academy ignored them, someone noticed Lieutenant Ethan Rise, a decorated human soldier with deep eyes and a sharp mind. He had seen many soldiers in his time, and he had learned to look past words and uniforms. He watched Kyla spar with a moving target, flipping in the air and striking with perfect timing. He saw Viri in the simulation room, calming down a wounded holographic ally while guiding them to safety. Ethan took notes. He watched quietly, listening to what others ignored. One day, a fight broke out between squads in the mess hall. No one noticed Kayla and Viri standing in the corner, watching everything, predicting every move. When the instructors broke up the brawl, Ethan saw the sisters whispering something in their musical language, nodding to each other, and slipping away unseen. He followed them. They returned to the training yard and practiced without rest. That same evening, during a council meeting, a sudden alarm blared. Red lights flashed across the academy. "Emergency lockdown," the computer voice warned. "Explosion in the simulation dome. Area sealed. Oxygen levels dropping." Panic spread. A dozen cadets were trapped inside. Officers rushed to the control room, but the doors were locked. The emergency override had failed. "We can't reach them," someone said. "The backup team is too far." Ethan stepped forward. "I'll take a squad in through the lower tunnel access." The commanders looked at each other. "Who will you take?" Ethan answered without hesitation. "Kayla and Viri." The room went silent. "They don't follow orders," one instructor said. "They can't be trusted," another added. Ethan shook his head. No one gave them a chance. "But I have seen them. They can do this." With time running out, they had no choice. Ethan raced to the tunnel entrance. Kayla and Viri were already there, standing like shadows in the dim light. "You saw us," Kayla said, her voice low and calm. "You want us to fight." "Not fight," Ethan replied. "Save." Viri gave a slight nod, and they moved as one. The tunnel was narrow and filled with smoke. Kayla led the way, jumping over broken pipes and crawling under fallen beams. She moved like she had done this all her life. Viri followed, guiding Ethan with soft words, warning of heat, gas leaks, and sounds in the dark. Inside the dome, cadets were screaming. Some had passed out. few were trying to break the sealed doors. Kayla kicked through the final wall section with a loud crack, and the three rushed in. Viri moved first, touching a frightened cadet's arm. "Breathe slow," she whispered. Her voice was warm, almost like a song. The panic faded. Kayla pulled debris off two more cadets, shouting for others to move. Ethan directed them, using his calm voice to keep everyone focused. Slowly, they moved the injured out, one by one. A support beam fell with a crash, nearly crushing a cadet, but Kayla leapt and shoved him out of the way, rolling across the floor. Blood dripped from a gash in her leg, but she didn't stop. Viri paused beside her, pressed her hand to the wound, and it began to close. "Later," Kayla whispered. "We finished this first." When the last cadet was safe, the backup team finally arrived. But it was already over. The sisters had done what no one expected. They didn't ask for praise. They simply stood beside Ethan, breathing hard, eyes focused. The next morning, the academy was quiet. Cadets stared as the sisters walked past. Some nodded in thanks. Others looked away, ashamed. In the meeting room, the instructors reviewed the security footage in silence. Kayla's wild moves. Viri's calm control. Ethan's steady leadership. One instructor finally spoke. "We were wrong." But Ethan already knew that. That evening, as the stars rose over the academy, Kayla asked Ethan why he had chosen them. He looked at both sisters and replied, "Because you were never weak. You were just never seen." And for the first time since arriving at Unity Core, Kayla smiled, and Viri whispered something that sounded like hope. The academy lights flickered dimly the morning after the rescue, casting long shadows across the training yards. As whispers spread like wind through the halls, Kayla and Viri were no longer invisible. Recruits, who once avoided them now, stared with quiet curiosity, unsure whether to fear or admire the alien sisters who had braved fire and chaos to save others. But their moment of recognition didn't last long. At sunrise, a sudden call to assembly gathered all cadets in the central square. Admiral Thorne, the cold, steel-eyed leader of the Unity Corps, stood tall before them. His voice echoed over the silence. "Today begins the fire trial." Murmurs rose. The fire trial was an ancient test, used only during the Academy's darkest days. Few spoke of it, and fewer had faced it. Thorne explained that a transport vessel carrying vital biodata had crashed deep inside a rogue planet's lava zone, an unstable place with burning rivers, wild storms, and unstable terrain. The data could not fall into enemy hands. A team had to retrieve it before a rival force arrived. "This is not training," Thorne said. "This is survival. Volunteers only." Ethan stepped forward without pause. Then, after a heartbeat, Kayla and Viri joined him. No one else moved. Later, inside the command room, Ethan was handed a rough map of the region. "You have 10 hours before the planet's orbit shifts and lava floods the zone," the officer warned. "No air support. No rescue once you go in." Ethan nodded grimly. Kayla stood beside him, checking her staff, her face unreadable. Viri whispered something in their soft alien language, her eyes distant. They were flown to the rogue planet in silence. Flames danced across the horizon as they landed. The air was thick and hot, every breath like fire. Cracks in the ground glowed with molten light. Without a word, the three began their journey, stepping carefully over broken rocks and narrow ledges. The heat was unbearable, even for seasoned soldiers. As they moved deeper, smoke began to rise behind them. Planet's core was shifting faster than expected. The trail twisted through narrow canyons and over fragile bridges made of cooled lava. Every step felt dangerous. At one point, a sudden tremor broke the ground beneath Kayla, sending her sliding toward a river of fire. But Viri was faster. She threw her staff like a spear, anchoring it in the ground, and used the vine-like cord to pull Kayla to safety. They didn't speak of it. They simply moved on. Halfway to the crash site, they spotted signs of another group: footprints, broken rocks, signs of a recent fight. Ethan knelt and touched the scorched earth. "We're not alone." Soon, they reached a narrow cave marked by strange alien symbols. The wreckage lay just beyond, down a slope glowing with orange light. But a warning pulsed in Viri's mind. Her people could sense danger before it appeared. She grabbed Ethan's arm and pointed to the rocks above. A sudden explosion shattered the cave's silence. Enemy drones hidden in the walls launched a surprise attack, their bodies sleek and sharp like blades. Ethan fired his pulse gun while Kayla flipped through the air, striking with her glowing staff, moving like fire itself. Viri stayed back, eyes focused, using her hands to shield them with shimmering energy from her homeland. The battle was fast and brutal. The drones moved like snakes, but the trio fought with perfect rhythm. Ethan's blasts cleared the way, Kayla cut them down, and Viri defended every weak spot. When the last drone fell, the cave was quiet again, except for the distant hiss of lava. They pressed forward. At last, they found the crash site, half buried in blackened stone, still glowing with energy. Ethan climbed inside and located the data core. "Got it," he said, holding the blinking capsule in his hand. But Viri's eyes went wide. "No," she whispered. The heat in the cave shifted. A deep, cracking sound echoed from the ceiling. "The structure's collapsing," Ethan shouted. "Move." They ran as the walls began to fall. Lava burst from the cracks, chasing them like a river of death. Rocks fell like rain. The ground split open. Kayla grabbed Ethan's arm when he slipped. Viri leapt forward to shield them both from a falling beam, her shield glowing bright before it cracked. They reached the exit, but the way back had changed. The bridge was gone, melted. Lava surged between them and the shuttle zone. Ethan cursed under his breath, but Kayla stepped forward, scanning the walls. "There's another way," she said. "A hunter's path. My people call it the Flame Vein." They followed her into a narrow crevice, almost too tight to breathe in. It twisted deep underground where the heat turned the air into liquid fire. Every second felt longer than the last. Ethan's suit burned. Kayla's steps slowed. Viri's light dimmed. But they did not stop. Suddenly, a growl echoed through the tunnel. From the darkness came a creature of flame and stone, a guardian born from the planet itself, drawn by the stolen core. It rose tall, its molten eyes staring straight into their souls. Ethan raised his weapon. "We don't have time for this." Kayla stepped forward. "Let me handle it." She spun her staff, the glowing crystal pulsing brighter than ever. The creature roared and charged. Kayla danced around it, striking its legs and back, drawing its attention. Ethan fired to distract it, while Viri closed her eyes and began to sing in her native tongue, a soft, strange melody that vibrated through the air. The creature froze, confused. The song touched something deep inside it. Kayla seized the moment, leaping high and striking the creature's core. With a final roar, it collapsed into ash. Silence followed. Viri's song faded. The tunnel opened ahead. The sky was near. They climbed out just as the lava reached the edge of the path. A shuttle descended fast, triggered by Ethan's signal. As they rose into the sky, the planet cracked and burned behind them. Back at the academy, the council watched the recording in stunned silence. "They survived the fire trial," one said softly. "More than that," another replied. "They changed it." The trio stood before the academy once more, their bodies burned, bruised, but standing tall. Kayla didn't smile. Viri didn't speak. Ethan just looked at them with quiet pride. The fire trial was meant to break them. Instead, it revealed who they truly were: warriors shaped by fire, strengthened by silence, and bound by something more powerful than orders. Trust. The moonless sky stretched over the distant world of Tarth 9 like a shroud of ink, hiding secrets in its shadows as Ethan, Kayla, and Viri prepared for their next mission, one that came without applause, without light, and without mercy. The Unity Corps had intercepted a transmission suggesting that an underground rebel faction had obtained a piece of forbidden tech capable of disrupting entire planetary networks, and this tech had been hidden in the ruins of an abandoned listening post buried deep beneath a city lost to time and ash. A place even smugglers refused to enter. The mission was silent and secret. No one could know, not even most of the academy staff. And if they were caught, the Corps would deny them completely. Still, Ethan accepted, and Kayla and Viri followed without question, their trust in him stronger than the silence around them. As the shuttle descended through thick layers of fog and static interference, the trio braced for a world the maps called the Stillgrave, a zone untouched for decades, frozen in time since a battle wiped out its people and left only dust, metal bones, and the constant hum of something watching. The ruins greeted them with cracked towers and endless fog, the buildings leaning like drunk giants while the ground beneath their feet groaned under ancient pressure, and every step forward felt like walking through the echo of a nightmare, their boots sinking into ash and broken memories. Their scanners were near useless. Electronic signals flickered like candlelight in wind, and strange noises slipped through their comms, half static, half whispers, none of it clear. "We're being watched," Viri said softly, her eyes glowing faintly as they adjusted to the unnatural darkness. She could feel something crawling through the still air, something not alive but aware. Ethan raised his hand, signaling silence, and they pressed deeper into the ruins, moving past shattered domes and rusted machines overgrown with strange black moss that crumbled when touched but somehow pulsed with hidden energy. After hours of silence, they found the entrance to the old post, a circular vault door set into the earth like a buried eye, its locking system long dead. But Kayla used her staff like a tuning fork, striking it against the ground until a low tone caused the door to shudder and slowly open with a hiss, revealing a passage into blackness thick as oil. Lights flickered on their suits as they stepped into the underground, the air stale and cold, carrying the smell of metal, ozone, and something older, decay of a kind not born of time but abandonment. They passed rows of ruined consoles, chairs scattered, glass cracked, all of it frozen mid-movement, like those who once worked here had simply vanished in an instant. The deeper they went, the more twisted the facility became. Walls stretched strangely, angles bent in ways that hurt the eye, and machinery hummed with a rhythm like breathing. Viri whispered warnings that didn't make sense. She said the walls were dreaming, that the shadows blinked, that the past here wasn't dead, only waiting. Ethan didn't argue, just gripped his weapon tighter. They found signs of the rebel team, eventually burned out lamps, recent footprints, a fallen helmet marked with red ink, and a crude symbol of a broken star, but no bodies. Kayla touched a scorch mark and frowned. "No blood," she muttered. "They didn't die here. They were taken." Then the silence broke. An electronic shriek cut through the hall. Lights exploded, and the walls trembled as something scrambled above them, too fast to see, claws scraping steel. Ethan shouted for cover, and they ducked into a broken lab as shadows darted past, shapes not quite robotic but not alive either, like machines possessed by ghosts, their movements glitching with sudden bursts of speed. Kayla and Viri worked together, setting traps with energy nodes and scanning frequencies, trying to confuse the attackers. But the creatures didn't want to kill, they wanted to herd, to trap. It became clear as doors began sealing behind them and paths twisted back toward places they had already passed. Viri began to chant softly, using her people's songs to map sound instead of light, and discovered that the corridors moved on their own, like intestines, shifting with every step the trio took. Finally, they reached the data vault where the stolen tech was stored. But it wasn't a console or a drive, it was alive. Suspended in the center of the room was a creature like a jellyfish made of glass and electricity, its body pulsing with codes and strange patterns, whispering ideas into the air that had no words, only intent. It's not tech, Kayla breathed. It's a mind fragmented, maybe. But it's thinking. Ethan approached slowly, but the moment his hand reached for the containment field, the shadows struck. Again, this time not with claws, but with whispers. A voice filled the room. Not one voice but many, layered over each other like echoes out of time, speaking truths that didn't make sense, calling Viri by name, telling Kayla of battles never fought, showing Ethan a future where Earth burned and no one came to save it. Viri fell to her knees, clutching her head, the voices slicing through her like shards of memory. But Ethan grabbed her shoulder and pulled her back into focus, shouting over the noise, "It's lying, it wants us afraid." Kayla smashed a nearby panel, cutting the power long enough for the whispering to stop, and silence returned like a gasp. Viri's hands trembled, but she stood. "It's not just a weapon," she said slowly. "It's a seed of thought that grows and infects minds, and the rebels wanted to plant it in the core itself." Ethan looked at the creature, then at the containment unit. He couldn't let it fall into anyone's hands, not even their own. With Kayla's help, they transferred the mind fragment into a portable stasis shell. But even locked away, it pulsed with eerie light, like a heartbeat. They fought their way out, dodging the crawling shadows, racing through shifting tunnels as the facility reacted like a wounded beast, trying to collapse around them. Finally, the surface came into view, but the last bridge collapsed as they reached it, forcing Ethan to jump across and pull Viri and Kayla one by one while flames rose from the ruins below. The shuttle came just in time, descending through the dark clouds as explosions rocked the city. As they lifted off, the ground below crumbled, swallowing the past once more. Back at the academy, the mission was never logged, the report buried, and only Admiral Thorne was briefed. He stared at the stasis shell, then at the trio, and said nothing for a long time. Then he nodded once and walked away. Kayla watched him go, her face unreadable. Viri closed her eyes, whispering a warning to herself. Ethan stood alone on the platform, wondering not what the creature had been but what it had shown him that might still come true. The days after the mission in the shadows passed like distant echoes, quiet on the surface but filled with tension underneath. And although Ethan, Kayla, and Viri had returned to the academy, none of them felt at peace. The strange living tech, the mind fragment, was locked deep beneath the central vault, guarded day and night by machines and silence. But everyone knew it wasn't truly safe. Not while it still pulsed with whispers no one could explain. Admiral Thorne had said nothing more since the debrief, but his eyes told them he feared what might come, and the three knew they would be called again, sooner than expected. Sure enough, alarms echoed through the night 1 week later, red lights flashing across the academy. But this time the threat wasn't outside, it was already inside. Something had triggered a breach in Vault Theta, the same chamber where the stasis shell was kept, and all systems monitoring it had gone dark, like the place had been swallowed by silence. Ethan, already awake and restless, rushed to the command center where Thorn met him with a grim nod and said only 2 words. "It's awake." No one understood how it had bypassed the failsafes, but the living code had begun to pulse in patterns that formed strange symbols, patterns recognized by no system but still read as commands. And suddenly drones malfunctioned, locks twisted open, and containment failed. Kayla and Viri arrived, both already armed. Kayla's eyes fierce and Viri's strangely calm, as if she'd known this moment would come. The trio followed Thorn to a lower access point, only to find the corridor warped like melted plastic, walls stretched and smooth like something had rewritten them at a molecular level. And the deeper they went, the more their equipment flickered and failed. Lights dimmed, gravity wavered, and voices whispered again, not aloud, but in their thoughts, subtle and soft, like someone remembering their names in dreams. When they reached the core chamber, they found guards unconscious, not harmed but lost, standing in corners and murmuring fragments of other people's memories. Eyes glassy and blank, the vault was open, the stasis shell shattered, and in the center of the room floated the creature. Its form larger now, no longer jellyfish-like but stretched out like a tree of thought, branches of light extending across the ceiling, touching wires and consoles as it absorbed knowledge too fast to measure. It noticed them, not with eyes but with presence, and it spoke not in words but in shared images, flashes of possible futures. One where Earth was a graveyard, one where Kayla ruled a golden city, one where Viri stood alone in endless snow, one where Ethan faced himself holding a weapon he didn't recognize. The visions made them hesitate, but Ethan shouted, breaking the spell, and Kayla raised her staff while Viri sang a sharp note that disrupted the creature's rhythm for a moment, giving them the chance to launch a containment strike. But the creature had learned it responded by warping the floor, pulling metal into shields and forming strange defense forms from cables and broken machines. And suddenly they were fighting ghosts of thought, constructs made of code and memory. Enemies who moved unpredictably because they were not real, only projections powered by belief and fear. Ethan charged forward, cutting a path with his kinetic blade, while Kayla hurled blasts of focused sound that cracked the projections apart. And Viri used her people's ancient tones to weaken the creature's hold on the space around them. It was like fighting an idea, something that couldn't truly be killed, only contained or forgotten. But the trio refused to back down. As the battle raged, the creature tried to speak directly to each of them, offering Kayla visions of her people free and strong, promising Viri a future where she was no longer alone, and showing Ethan a universe where war was over and peace eternal, all if they let it live and share its mind. The temptation hit hard, but Ethan remembered what they'd seen before, remembered the rebel minds driven mad and the ruins of Stillgrave, and he shouted again, "It lies always." Together, they pushed forward, and Kayla used her energy staff to drive the creature back into a corner of the vault where Viri began to chant, drawing on an ancient sealing technique her ancestors had once used to trap spirits of the sky. Ethan threw a modified pulse bomb at the core of the creature, not to destroy it, but to freeze its thought patterns for just a few seconds. And in that blink of time, Viri finished her song and the vault shimmered with light as a new stasis formed, not mechanical, but woven from sound and willpower. The creature's light dimmed, its branches pulled inward, and once again it was locked away, but this time in a prison of meaning, not metal. After the fight, the academy stood in ruins, its systems damaged and many cadets shaken by the wave of psychic energy that had swept through them during the breach. Thorn stood in the broken vault, his voice tired but firm, and told them they had done what no one else could have, stopped a mind from rewriting reality. Yet Ethan, Kayla, and Viri all knew the danger was truly gone. The mind fragment had learned from them, had touched their thoughts, had seen their fears and hopes, and in doing so had evolved. It now knew what it wanted to be understood, to grow, to connect, even if the result was the end of all free will. That night, Kayla sat under the stars, thinking of the city the creature had shown her, wondering if it had been real. Fury carved strange patterns into a crystal, whispering old words meant to ward off mind dreams. Ethan stood alone in the training hall, slashing the air over and over, fighting shadows only he could see. They were tired, but not broken, and though the academy tried to return to normal, nothing would be the same again. The creature had named itself in the final moment before its silence. It called itself Orvin, a word that didn't exist but felt like truth. And that name echoed in Ethan's mind as he realized they hadn't ended the war, only survived the first round. Months had passed since Orvin was sealed again, but peace had become a quiet illusion that everyone pretended to believe in, even though deep inside they knew it wouldn't last, especially Ethan, who now dreamed in patterns and symbols that did not belong to any language he knew, symbols that shimmered with a strange pull, like the memory of something still waiting. The academy had been rebuilt in parts, though some sections remained closed, still humming with unstable energy, and while most cadets moved on, the trio that had stopped Orvin could not forget. Kayla trained harder than ever, her moves sharper, her instincts honed like blades, while Veery became distant, often lost in thought, staring at stars and whispering songs only she understood. Ethan kept busy running drills, leading missions, anything to stop the quiet voices at the back of his mind. But the truth broke through when a distress call arrived from a forgotten colony, on the edge of controlled space. No survivors. No wreckage, just silence and data wiped clean. The signature left behind matched the pulse of Orvin, though the vault at the academy still glowed with containment light and showed no breach. Thorn summoned them in secret and revealed that the vault had not been truly closed. It had been sending microscopic fragments of data, drifting out like spores, and someone or something had picked one up. Ethan's eyes narrowed, and Kayla clenched her fists, while Veery's breath caught like she already knew this would happen. Their mission was clear: trace the signal, find the new host, and end it for good. But they were no longer dealing with a confused creature seeking connection. They were chasing something that had learned human ambition, alien pride, and the hunger to evolve without limits. Their ship, the Silent Ember, carried only them, traveling in stealth through uncharted stars toward the signal's origin, a planet that had not been on any maps before, one made entirely of metal forests and oceans that pulsed like circuitry, and at its center, a tower shaped like a single word in Orvin's lost language. The moment they stepped onto the surface, they felt it, eyes without form, watching, listening, trying to reach into their thoughts again. This time they were ready, shields in place, minds trained to resist. But the environment itself was hostile, shifting ground and strange creatures made of half code and half metal, testing them with illusions, memories, and visions that twisted trust. They fought their way to the tower, where they found others, alien girls, just like Kayla and Veery, once thought lost or discarded, now connected to Orvin's mind, standing silently, their eyes glowing with unnatural light. They had been changed, not controlled, but convinced, given purpose by a being that had shown them futures where they were more than outcasts, futures where they ruled, unafraid and unstoppable. Kayla stepped forward, heart torn, recognizing faces she once trained beside, hearing their voices filled with strange peace as they told her that she could join them, become part of something greater, something eternal. Ethan raised his weapon, unsure if he could fire, and Veery stepped between them, reaching out to the nearest girl, not to fight but to listen. Her voice sang a note not of war, but of sorrow, reminding the lost ones of the pain they once felt. of the kindness they once craved, and for a brief moment, something broke. Eyes dimmed, tears fell, and Orvin roared. It appeared, no longer just light, but a shape vast and terrible. Built from the tower itself, a creature of will and memory, furious that its dream was being shattered, it attacked without mercy, sending blasts of thought that struck like hammers, causing Kayla to scream and fall, Ethan to stagger, and Viri to collapse in pain. But the three rose again, pushing through, not because they were stronger, but because they still remembered who they were before all of this began. Kayla charged, her energy crackling like fire, shouting that her people were not pawns, not weapons, but warriors with hearts. Ethan followed, slashing through illusions, shouting that the future must be chosen, not forced, and Viri sang louder than ever, her voice reaching the sky, breaking the link between Orvin and the alien girls, freeing one mind at a time as the creature screamed in despair. The final blow came when they stood together, hands joined, channeling their pain, their loss, their hope into a wave of raw thought that crashed into Orvin and shattered its core, not just destroying it, but unraveling it, pulling apart every false promise, every stolen future, until only silence remained. The tower collapsed, the planet shook, and as the dust settled, the alien girls stood blinking, free and confused, no longer tools of a forgotten code. Ethan looked around, battered but alive. Kayla limped beside him, and Viri knelt among the others, helping them remember who they were. The ship returned full, not just with victory, but with new voices. Alien girls once unwanted, now with a place, a name, and a purpose of their own. At the academy, no one looked at them the same again. They were no longer outsiders, no longer silent or strange. They were heroes, and the galaxy took notice. From that day on, whenever a mission seemed too dangerous, too complex, or too wild for any standard team, the command center sent a signal to a group known simply as Ember Unit, led by a human who refused to give up, an alien who found her strength, and another who healed through song. They had been ignored, dismissed, and forgotten, but now they were unstoppable.